So you've finally taken the steps to get that multifamily property under contract. And now you're stuck because you don't really understand the due diligence process. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what the due diligence process is and why that's a benefit for you as a buyer. Coming up. Hey there, it's Billy with Keep on Cash Flow, helping you to grow your money and your mindset so that you can get closer to the lifestyle that you want to lead faster. Now on this channel, we're going to be sharing lots of tips and strategy videos just like this. So if it's your first time here, you're going to want to consider subscribing. And you're going to want to make sure that you check out the comments and the links in the section below. Lots of really great stuff happening there. But as for today, I want to get back to helping you understand what is the due diligence process and why is that important for you as the buyer of a new multifamily property. And if you stay around to the end, I'm going to share a ninja tip with you just before I ask the question of the day. So first of all, what is the due diligence process and why is it important in the multifamily space? First and foremost, your parents probably told you exactly like mine told me. When someone tells you something, trust what they say and at the same time go out and verify. And the due diligence process is nothing more than that. It's just a chance for you as the buyer to make sure that everything that you've understood up until the point of getting the property under contract was exactly what the seller conveyed to you or told you. So I want to share a couple of different steps in the due diligence process to just make sure that what you understood about the property is exactly that the differences between what you think and the seller thinks are as few as possible. And I thought, what better way to do that than actually share one of the documents that I use and that my company uses. So it's a pretty lengthy 7-page document, but let me just take you through a couple of what I consider to be the most important steps. First of all, you're going to want to think about who are the different contacts, who are the different players, who are the attorneys, the brokers, who are the accountants that are going to be working on this particular transaction. That is one of the things that's really important. Also, think about some of the different consulting reports that need to take place as a second step. So these would include things like a phase 1 report. They would include things like a structural survey, etc. And then if you think about the third point in the due diligence process, or at least the third one that I would like to share with you today, you want to think about your operational documents. And what do I mean by that? So you can think about your property management agreements that you have in place. You want to review those. You want to review some of the different the leases that were on that the current owner has. And you want to think about a financial audit. And when I talk to you about a financial audit within the operational documents, you want to make sure that you understand what is the physical occupancy, which is one thing, which is how many people are actually in the buildings. And then another thing that I see a lot of people with less experience miss is what are the actual economic occupancies, which means there are people there, but how many of them are actually paying? And depending on how tight your process is, that you should have your economic occupancy and your physical occupancy as close as possible to one another. Let's move on to a fourth area. You can talk about or look at things like the existing insurance. Do they have liability insurance? What type? What types of coverage? Do they have fire or casualty? Those are really important areas for you to know about as a new potential buyer. After that, you also want to think about things like the service contracts. And when I talk about looking up the service contracts, there are things like your HVAC, things like your janitorial, or if you have landscapers, anyone who is providing another service to this property. You want to look at what are the historical costs and also understanding what has been there. Then next, you want to look at things like utilities as well, because depending on if you're paying for the utilities or your company or the residents or tenants, that's an important part of the operational expense that could impact the purchase. So make sure that you look back and you see exactly what those utilities were in the past, because that will help you to also look forward in understanding what your potential costs or exposures could be moving forward. So I guess I would like to leave you with things like also that if there are any financing documents, if you're going to be using financing or if the previous owner had financing, those are different types of documents you want to look at. And then lastly, you're going to want to look at the closing documents and who is responsible for what. the payments, and making sure that that at the closing table that everything is absolutely crystal clear for both you as the buyer as well as for the seller. And so, since you've stuck around to the very end, there is a ninja trick that I want to share with you. And it's something that I want to make sure that you do because it's going to really help you. Now, as we talked about a number of different steps, at least that I think are really important for you to know in the due diligence process, one thing that you want to be able to do is from the very beginning is have the property management company that you're going to be working with, have them involved in the entire process. Because at the end of the day, once your company or you take over this particular multifamily building or complex, they're going to be responsible for making sure that the improvements are taking place, the stabilization of the property, or the consistent running of the property is taking place. But that's a key trick, a key ninja tip, is just to make sure that the property management company is involved from the very beginning of the due diligence process. So now I want to leave you with the question of the day. My question to you is, which of the steps that I've shared with you today in the due diligence process do you find to be the most beneficial for you, and why? So this is Billy Keels with Keep on Cash Flow. It's my 2 cents for today. And as always, hasta la próxima. Hey there, on this channel,